Hello and welcome to The Studio Demands It, an exercise in creative thinking where we will conceptualize, pitch, and craft a film or series based on the demands or stipulations from one of you listeners acting as a hypothetical Hollywood overlord.
Hollywood!
As professional screenwriters ourselves and massive cinephiles, we talk movies all the time.
Talk movies!
And we'd like to believe that we could meet any demand thrown at us. So right here on the spot, we will be your screenwriters for this episode. I am TC DeWitt, and joining me, as always, is Jim, back from Geneva, Berzelic. Hello, Jim.
Hello, Jim.
Wait a minute. You're just repeating random things that I'm saying.
That I'm saying.
You know, there are people out there who believe I just do this podcast alone, and I do both voices.
Really?
Yeah, there's people out there.
I believe that.
Yeah. They come to me sometimes, tears in their eyes. They say,
No, keep going, yeah. What do they say?
They say, I know it's just you and that you do Jim's voice. And I look them right in the eye, and you know what I say to them? I say,
all the time.
and they're like, wow, that sounded just like Jim. Your timing was terrible, Jim.
Yeah.
Anyway, welcome back. You went to the Geneva Convention.
I did.
How was that? Did you
Did you
reach any treaty?
Genevish.
Treaties?
That's terrible. We did.
Yeah. The war is over?
Yep.
Okay.
No, I went to Gen Con. This was because of COVID, I don't know how I don't know how to number them now. Although I guess they did have an entirely remote one. So technically a Gen Con has not been missed. Mm-hmm. And thus I have not missed since I've started going this year. Oh, that means I didn't do anything special to celebrate. This was my 30th Gen Con.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Wow, you've been going since you were 2 years old.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And you've been
going? My parents would just drive up to the Mecca Center,
yeah,
drop me off, and say, "Figure it out, kiddo." And I didn't understand what they were saying.
Sure.
And I would just wander around
Until they picked you up.
Yeah.
30 years. Wow.
People would look at that baby, and they'd throw dice at me.
And you'd throw it back. Roll a 20.
Mm-hmm.
And be like, whoa! This baby knows what he's
Not
doing.
messing with that baby.
Wow. So you would feasibly you've seen it grow and change over the years.
Yes.
Was this my 15th year going to Comic-Con, I believe? But I've seen it sort of change, the crowds grow and shrink and whatnot in my time. And COVID certainly made a difference. And the fact that the strike happened this year really made it feel like, and this is before my time even, from the scuttlebutt from people who'd been there for, like you, going on 30 years, it felt more like it had felt in the 90s. The no Hollywood, it's about comics and comic creators and video games and board games.
Sure. We
have no room for television and film unless it's the absolute nerdiest stuff that you could talk for an entire hour about without the stars, without the filmmakers, without anything new. So like Firefly.
Yeah.
So with all that said, have you seen a change in Gen Con over the years? For good or bad?
Yeah. It's gotten bigger. The people who have had control of it, they've done a really good job growing it. They've tried a few different things over the years. So early on, it was started by TSR, and they ran it their way for a while into the late 90s, and then they were sold to Wizards of the Coast. And then Wizards of the Coast was sold to Hasbro, but Peter Adkinson kept Gen Con. That wasn't sold to Hasbro as well.
It's like Fox News. Like Fox sold everything but their news department.
Yeah, kind of like that, yeah. And Hasbro eventually kind of did a similar thing where they pulled further and further away from Gen Con. Mm-hmm. They're still a present, like very much like it. They have D&D, and D&D is still very much the main arteries of gaming. Mm-hmm. So they still have a major presence there, but they used to have a giant booth and stuff like that, and they don't really have that anymore. By not really, I mean at all.
Yeah.
They don't have that. I kind of feel like it's at the peak for this venue.
Yeah.
Because they sold out of badges. They sold out of 4-day badges and Saturday badges.
Oh wow. Okay, so it's getting a little big again for its britches.
and this is the second time it's ever sold out.
Wow. But they might need a new venue.
That I think so. That's not even what you're necessarily. Well, I guess no. That's sort of what you're asking about. Is how has it grown? How has it changed?
Do you know if there's any sort of documentary about Gen Con? Because it seems like
there's a I believe there's a documentary about Gen Con. I know there's like 3 or 4 documentaries about D&D going around right now.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, with the movie that just came out, that doesn't surprise me. It's just a fascinating culture. It is the mecca of a very specific nerddom, whereas Comic-Con it feels so all encompassing to pop culture, which is a shame because
I mean, so I actually think that's optics. I don't think that's actually true for either convention.
It's not Gen Con is not the Super Bowl of
no, it is
tabletop.
Well, it's the largest gaming convention, but in your from your perspective, it's gaming. It's all gaming. It's just gaming.
Yeah,
and that's not true. It's mostly. Don't get me wrong. It's mostly games the way Comic-Con is mostly comics.
Mm-hmm.
All the things that are not comics at Comic-Con, that's the way it is at Gen Con as well.
So like The Witcher had a booth.
Things. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I wasn't being snarky.
No. The Witcher TV show didn't have a booth.
Okay.
In that way, it's not big enough to necessarily court major things like that. But there were. This is a way it's changed.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, back before the internet, conventions were how nerds shared a lot of multimedia. So there used to be multiple booths that would just sell movies.
Bootlegs,
yeah. There used to be a whole. All it sold. It was like 2 or 3 booths long, and they set up walls, and they put I forget what the ghillie tarps. I forget what they're called over the whole thing. All they sold was war movies. Like, you wouldn't believe how many war movies this place sold on VHS and DVD.
How fascinating! That's so funny.
Well, we know that there's a lot of war movies.
We do, yeah.
But until you see that many put together in one space, no other genres, right? They're at a fantasy convention. No fantasy, no sci-fi. We only do wars.
Strange.
Like, I think at most it might have had Excalibur, right? Like, it might have had a few knights on horses movies.
Sure.
But
just war movies.
Yeah, just war movies.
Huh. But they
were there for years.
But no reason to be there anymore, right?
Yeah.
Huh. Well,
but that being said, there's another booth that is still there. They're there every year. They sell anime.
Oh well, anime's not going anywhere.
They're right in the middle of the convention. They put up. It's not the same. They don't create like a ceiling and walls for you, but they do have a giant wall. So they sell wall scrolls and towels and body pillow.
Girlfriends,
yeah.
Body pillow girlfriends, got it.
On top of then there being like 6 feet of DVDs between the guy running the booth and you at the outside for you to like just.
I want that one.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff at Gen Con.
Okay. Well, congratulations on being there for so long. It's a subculture I'm fascinated in because I've never been to Gen Con and it's sort of like a nerd area that I don't delve into as much as frequent. I don't frequent it as often as I'd like to. Like
Sure.
I like going to game stores with you, but I am fascinated by the existence of it and the growth of it, and that's why I wondered if there was a documentary about it or a movie about it, if you will, which I'm now going to use to segue in today's episode.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yes, it is.
All right. Well, Jim, our amazing listeners have given us demands from literally all over the world. And you listening now, you can send us any demand you like, and we will have to meet it right here on the spot. And when we reach the end of the episode, if we've done our jobs, we will have pitched a full script and story meeting or even exceeding those demands. And when the end of the season comes, your demand could have helped us craft the script that the listeners will greenlight for the finale. So thank you to everyone who has submitted. keep them coming, and keep your eye out, because after this episode, we have one more episode of the season, and then we will be reaching the end of the season is going to be some, like we'll do the crossover with David and our second to last episode, but we're reaching the point where the voting's going to begin for the finale. So we will put a poll out for what your options are to vote for in terms of what we're going to produce for the finale. Strikes in progress. We don't know how that's going to work out, but we'll get there. But so just keep an eye out on the socials for voting. So anyway, let's get to today's demand. And since we were talking about the plethora of war movies, I feel like that coincides a little bit. So this is from LB at Artistry Pictures. Having recently been on a kick of films based on true stories and events, I realized that there has never been a time without biopics in cinema. Literally, some of the earliest movies are based on historical events and figures. How many war movies alone are there? 18 Best Picture Oscar winners are biopics. A third of the acting Oscars have gone to portrayals of real people, and again, dozens more nominated. And this isn't even taking into account all the outstanding true stories that never get the accolades. In fact, those are my favorite ones. American Splendor, Dolomite, Dolomite is my name, Fanboys, Ed Wood, and that's what my studio is asking of you to, and that's what my studio is asking you to into our office for today. We'd like you to pitch a biopic that is sure to find an audience. What is a true story you think should be told? We are ready to invest in your best idea. Looking forward to hearing it. Thank you, LB. I appreciate. I wonder, have we done LB before? That sounds familiar.
It does sound familiar.
Yeah. Well, thank you for this, and well observed and funny that you would mention war movies. Jim,
Yes.
biopic. You haven't seen Oppenheimer yet.
I have not.
We started to,
And then
we left.
For some reason, this summer, everyone wants to talk in the movie. They want to talk during the movie.
They want to take their phones
can't
out.
Stop talking.
They can't stop ruining movies. Why? What is wrong with people? I don't understand. Another podcast I listened to had a question about that.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do when people talk? And they're like, you don't want a confrontation. Just ignore it. No. I'm sick and tired of people showing up.
Ignoring it lets it become worse.
But anyway, you haven't seen Oppenheimer yet.
I have not.
Yeah. But that certainly is the biggest biopic of the year.
Yes.
But this is interesting. I didn't realize, but how could I not realize this? How many famous movies, Oscar-winning movies, Oscar-winning portrayals have been true stories.
Sure.
One of my favorites, which I don't think maybe got some nominations or whatnot, but Catch Me If You Can is one of my all-time favorite Spielberg movies, and it's a biopic.
I mean, it was. It turns out.
No, that's part of the amazingness of that story is that even the story about it all being about fabricating this man's life, even the story was a fabrication. That's that. Frank Abagnale Jr. wins.
Yeah, he does.
Good man. Bad man.
Yeah.
or great man. Who you decide. But
it's one of those things where he's so bad it wraps around to being great.
Yeah, it's like that's infamy if there's ever been. But so a biopic or biopic, however you want to pronounce it. I'll probably do both over the next hour. Are there any that jump out at you? Some of your favorites?
That exist?
Yeah.
Let's see. What can I think of just off the top of my head? Serpico.
Yeah. Is that just because it's always sunny in Philadelphia? And Charlie's obsession with Serpico?
No. Serpico was actually a good movie. That's it apparently. No,
I would wager it wouldn't be hard to sit down and map the history of the world through movies, like through true story films. So
oh sure.
All right, well, 300 can go right in here, along with the 300 Spartans, 2 movies about the same thing. And we'll put Pearl Harbor here, and then Oppenheimer here.
Well, okay, now you referenced Pearl Harbor. There are other movies about Pearl Harbor that are more actual biopics. I don't think that would count as a biopic because it's not based on any people.
It's based on the event. So,
Titanic. But the things that, the things that happened in Pearl Harbor, like this ship was attacked and people attacked back, and I guess some of those people were based on actual people.
Sure.
But those are all ancillary to Ben Affleck and Josh Hartnett fighting over Kate Beckinsale.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
fight, yeah.
certainly.
So like,
Based on true events.
does that count as a biopic?
No, I think the difference that we should probably determine here is based on true events movies versus actual biopics. And I think biopics, you probably could say, are about a specific person.
Yeah, because they're biographies.
Yes, yeah.
In movie form.
Yeah, as opposed to saying like Saving Private Ryan, not a true
biopic.
story.
Yeah.
But very accurately portraying a
Sure.
real event. Right. So, but the demand here is for us to just pitch something.
I mean,
biopic-y.
for the purposes of today,
Yeah.
because LB isn't here to clarify, we can lump those all in together.
Okay. Now I recently had a conversation with at Comic-Con, funny enough, about the scripts that I've worked on, and you've worked on a couple projects too with me, at least through client work that deals with World War II. We learned about the secret organization through the UK that utilized Maori code breakers and female spies. Like the majority of spies working for the United Kingdom during World War II were female. We got to play in that arena, which was a lot of fun. I did a piece about bootlegging in Canada.
Nice.
So I learned all about Prohibition era. Prohibition in Canada was 1 year after Prohibition in America. So all the bootleggers just switched directions which way they were running the booze. Also, Prohibition was 1 year in both countries.
Huh.
Like we tried to go drive for 365 days, and America
So we
was
tried.
like, nope.
Nope, this isn't happening. Canada was like, we'll give it a shot.
We'll get it. Nope. So yeah, I've played in this arena a bit, and now it's got my gears turned. But anything jump to mind? Do you have anything locked and loaded that you'd like to throw out there?
Sort of. So I knew this was going to be the topic, so I tried doing some homework, and I'm bad at homework. I found a few people that I was like, let's see if there's something about them, and let's try to look up to like their wiki at least to see if like I can like track out a movie here somehow.
Sure.
And I couldn't. I'm sure there's a story to be told, a biopic of Stan Lee's life. It could be told really cool. I couldn't find it. Gene Roddenberry, I'm sure you could do a film version of Gene bringing Star Trek to life and all the difficulties that came with that and everywhere it went and what it blew up into, the bold frontier that he explored.
Sure.
But I couldn't like I didn't know, I couldn't grab enough details.
Okay.
And I decided I'd sleep on it. Like literally, I took a nap.
Okay.
And
come to me, muses.
I woke up with with the thing that I wanted to I looked it up. No one has made a movie. There was plans to make a movie in 2013, and it fell through for probably tragic reasons. And so the topic I chose is the Bone Wars.
The Bone Wars.
The Bone
I
Wars.
do not know what the Bone Wars are.
So in the late 1800s, there were multiple, but it primarily came down to two individuals who were fighting to be the foremost in the burgeoning field of paleontology.
So dinosaur
bones.
hunters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And
this is cowboy era. You said 19.
the 1890s.
1890s. Okay. So late 19th century.
Yep.
America or worldwide.
America.
American. Okay.
Because they a lot of their work was done in like Colorado, Nebraska, Utah, that kind of area. That where you can dig up all kinds of bones in that area, and that's what they did. And the reason that this would make such a good biopic, or at least period piece, about these guys, is because it wasn't just two guys who could dig faster. They would sabotage each other.
Okay.
They would slander each other. They would steal from like it was a full-on war.
The Bone War.
Yeah.
Bone War is a great title. Like
Wars.
Bone Wars.
Bone Wars.
The
Yeah.
Bone Wars. That's a great title. Like I'm already on board for that. And now you tell me it's about dinosaur hunters.
Yeah.
Okay. Like
but, I can't remember their name. Marsh and
The Bone Wars.
The guy's middle name is Drinker.
The rivalry between, oh my God, Othniel Charles Marsh and Edward Drinker Cope.
Yes. In 2013.
Marsh versus Cope. Othniel versus Edward.
Yeah.
Like, those names are great.
Othniel.
Othniel.
In 2013, there was a movie had been put into pre-production about these people. It was supposed to star Steve Carell and James Gandolfini.
Oh, wow.
And it was going to be made for TV.
Yeah.
It was going to be made by HBO, and it was going to be like a historical comedy.
I'm gonna turn the screen to you to see these two gentlemen, and I'm gonna tell you who they are. This is the Bone Wars. If you go to the Wikipedia for Bone Wars, you can see the photo I'm referencing, starring Paul Giamatti and Willem Dafoe.
Oh, not bad. You're casting Paul Giamatti as Othniel Marsh.
Yep.
And Willem Dafoe as
Edward Drinker
Cope. I'm pretty sure Gandolfini was going to play Marsh, and Carell was going to play Cope.
Based on their size, yes, that makes sense.
When I first saw that image, I actually immediately saw Christoph Waltz as Cope.
I can see that too. But I mean, you couldn't ask for two better looking characters. There's one dude, like very thin hair, practically bald on top of a giant old like V-shaped beard, and then this guy with the Van Dyke and a nice like coiffed hair over to the side.
It's honestly, it's almost like the pairing of the Walrus and the Carpenter.
Yeah. So since Gandolfini and Carell were involved, actually that's a toss-up if it would be a comedy or not, because
it was listed as a comedy.
As a comedy, okay. Is that how you would see it? Like how keep pitching the movie here, because as far as subject matter goes, two dudes trying to find the most dinosaur bones. Did either one of these guys fake the Brontosaurus?
I don't know.
Okay.
They did do stuff like they would mess with each other, right? Like I'm pretty sure there was one story of either one of them or sending someone to break in one night and rearrange one of the skeletons that they put together.
I'm seeing this right now. Yeah, Cope sabotaged by switching skulls on one of the dinosaurs to make them look bad.
Yeah. That like just kind of all sorts of nefarious stuff like that.
But would you see it comedy? Like, are you seeing this as a?
I think so. Yeah.
Almost a was it Sanchez production? Will Ferrell's production company.
Not that kind of comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Like a Steve Carell comedy. Actually, Carell is like sort of the perfect tone for that. So what do I mean by that? Because he does everything from like
Brick
The
from,
Office
yeah.
to
Well, okay, so here's an example. Dewey Cox, the Walk Hard Dewey Cox story, is a fake biopic, music biopic of a fake musician, but it does all the tropes of
it's a send up and parody of all of the music biopics.
Yes, and it's very self-aware and meta jokes to the future and everything like that. So it's very silly. Do you imagine this being something? I guess like Miracle Workers would be a good comparison as far as shows are concerned. A show that's like, oh, it's the wagon train, but also we're saying, hey, dude, that's cool. Like, is it that level of?
I don't see it that way. I see it more being like it's the antics that these guys are, and it's not that they're necessarily being puckster prankish. To them, this is deadly serious.
There you go.
But to us, the audience, it's hilarious the things that they're doing and the way they're getting flustered and then wanting to get revenge and the way it escalates. Like I actually see it could even get dark. Like it could be like I don't mean like it suddenly takes a serious twist. Like a dark comedy where like someone gets killed and like the other person is just flustered about a femur.
Well, I think I know you might not be thinking of it, but I'm surprised you haven't evoked a certain period piece that has a level of silliness you're describing that you reference all the time. That Chris Farley's in.
That even that's too slapstick.
Okay. That's almost
I'm
Heroes.
doing a bad job of conveying the tone. I'm like comedy, but not funny. Like no, it like
Like Million Ways to Die in the West would be another example of something that takes itself very wacky, and yet it's all about saving the town from Liam Neeson shooting it up and whatnot. Well, that beside the point. Like, we don't have to sit here and split hairs about like what type of comedy it is. I'm more interested in like what's the story to tell. So break the story for me. So we know that these two are both competing to do what? What are they to find the most bone?
To basically become the most famous.
Okay.
Like they want to be the foremost fossil hunter.
This is like the Prestige, but with dinosaur bones.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
And so like I see montages of things like digging, being foiled, other suddenly being back in New York or Chicago, presenting a thing and people clapping, and then like cut to another presentation and like everyone's like they're turned away looking at someone else's presentation, and it just going back and forth. Yeah.
So just this like constant rivalry. So I like whether it's the fiction or the reality of it, as we're like trying to build a story here, is one of them the hero and one of them protagonist? Are they both? Is their ego the villain, and they could potentially be the villains? They're both villains. Like, go ahead.
No. So if I think to give it a different sort of context, I'd make it almost like a Mad World type of thing. Like it's a race, but not from literal one space to another. It's a race to become the most famous, and it would start because there were more than two of these guys. It's just
the biggest names.
They were the biggest, and they were really what it was about. But there were a handful of other paleontologists, and I would want to start it by introducing several of them, so then those would drop out as the movie went on. So that way, by time we get, probably the way we end up ending Act 2 is it's just these two guys.
Okay, so it's a period piece movie about competitive dinosaur bone hunting, crafted like a boxing movie. So
sure,
because they're going for the title, and it's coming down to it's going to be these two versus each other. So if that's sort of the structure that this could be modeled around, where do you go with this? Does it end with them firing guns at each other, fist fighting in a muddy street? Think of if you look at something like Talladega Nights or Anchorman, and Adam McKay is the ultimate smart dumb comedian as far as like his type of movies are concerned, where even the smart people in his movies are dum-dums, and they all exist in a world of ludicrousy. How
there you go, or McKay,
Adam McKay.
Adam McKay, that level of comedy.
Okay. So
right, like Don't Look Up and yeah, those types of movies.
Okay. Well, so where do you take these characters? What is
I didn't have an ending.
Well, fabricate one for me, because I think there is something to this. Like, if it's like the World's Fair is their big chance to show the world what they've got. If it's meeting a president or a celebrity, like I know, like we would verge into fictionalization of this in order to create a drama out of it. But basically, you've got two very interesting weirdo characters doing a very interesting weirdo thing. It just ultimately comes down to where are they going with this. And if you treat it like a boxing movie, what's the last fight? Like, they've been training their whole lives for this. They've been preparing for this.
So I think the way it ends, the way it ended in history was basically they both spent their fortunes just trying to outdo the other, to no real end, right? Like there wasn't a I'm gonna beat you to the World's Fair type thing. If that was a thing, it like that. I don't know.
Well, there's something to that. There's something to that. That if it escalates to a point where
See, like the way the
people
legacy, this story, the way the wiki words it is the legacy of this whole thing, judging by pure numbers, right? Like that even
doesn't mean
says that means there was no end. Judging by pure numbers, Marsh won the Bone Wars. Both scientists made finds of immense scientific thing, and like
that's what I'm saying. We fictionalize this, and if it comes down to them beating the snot out of each other in front of a crowd at the World's Fair, and they just keep, if it's a fight that goes to the lengths of They Live, They Live, yeah, the Roddy Piper beating up Keith David for 5 minutes, right? That's They Live.
Yeah, that's They Live.
If a fight, a chicken versus Peter fight starts unfolding in this finale to the point where people just don't care anymore. Like, oh my God, yeah, I get it, and it just keeps going, and then people kind of meander away, and it's just these two dudes just like.
Actually, you're. That's how I saw it sort of ending is like they just keep fighting, and no one like
and
I was like yelling at each other from exhibits across a hallway that no one is in. Like everyone else walked away. Like I would do like they have an exhibit, and everyone is more interested in this new steam engine,
right? Like
across the way, they're just scowling at each other.
They're still mad. They're still fighting.
Yeah.
No one cares anymore.
Yeah.
There's something that if it reaches a climactic,
it would be something like that, and then like for the denouement, like it would fade out on them throwing vertebrae at each other, right in that venue, and no one cares. It's just the two of them. Everyone they've hired has gone because they can't pay them anymore.
Yeah,
and they're just throwing bones at each other across this empty walkway. Fade to black, and it fades up, and I would do sort of like not, I wouldn't say 100 years later, but I'd basically do this, not quite a montage, but a short thing basically about the legacy that they, despite these two idiots fighting and all this stuff, all the things they discovered led to all of this other stuff.
Yeah, and thinking tonally where you would go with something like this, if it was in an Adam McKay style, it would ultimately fade out like on them just bickering and no one cares, fade to black, fade back in, and it's a museum.
Yeah,
and it's showing sort of like a corner exhibit of like, here's all the dinosaurs.
Actually, and it would either be like a guide talking about it, or like a recording showing things, talking about both Marsh and Cope in these very erudite ways, like, oh, there's such great men, but we just watched an hour and a half of just the two of the most petty people.
Yes, there you go.
Just trying to get one over the other guy.
Uh-huh. And having them erudite, that's very good. Like speaking to them very highly. You hear like the vocal recording on some exhibit that shows the two of them, and then it pans away and no one's standing there. No one's, and it's just, look, new Jurassic Park's coming out. Like no one cares.
Yeah, something like
it's
that.
It's like, hey, no, Dodson, we got Dodson. Yeah. No one cares. So yeah, see, I think building it up to that clash where they're literally striking each other with femurs, swinging them like baseball bats, and sword fighting with them.
I guess I was trying to. You said the World's Fair. Like I didn't. There was no real goal that they were working toward other than just I'm the best and you suck.
Right.
That's
but giving us a final set piece to set the final, like what the point where people finally just don't give a shit.
Sure.
A World's Fair or an event is the fabrication that I'm suggesting in something like this, especially wanting to be a period piece comedy.
Sure.
If you want it to be more realistic, then you'd have to sell me on where do you go with it? Like
Well, I just did.
Yeah, where is it?
It's at an exhibition.
Okay.
Probably an exhibition they set up that no one goes to.
Okay.
You're just saying that because I ruined my own topic.
No, I am trying to craft a structure here to make a Hollywood film.
I know, but then I'm like, but that's not true to the story. I know.
If you wanted it to be true to the story, it would be dull.
How dare you?
Like, did these guys ever fire guns at each other?
Not directly.
Well, that's boring. Did they ever punch each other in the faces?
They hired people to fire guns.
Did they ever punch
That's
each other?
interesting.
Did they ever punch each other in the face?
Not directly.
That's not interesting.
They hired people to do that.
They just sat on their thrones and like, fight for me. Use that punch. I'm just challenging you, Jim. I'm just trying to.
I don't like to be challenged. I just want to eat a donut.
I didn't mean to like attack you on it.
No, I know.
I think that's a cool idea, though. Like the title alone sells it, and making it a comedy, that's good. Like there's something to that.
There aren't many historical comedies.
No, like the Sister Brothers, Blazing Saddles. Like those are two very different things.
Well, and they're both fictional.
Yeah. But like a period piece comedic biopic,
Mm-hmm.
that's funny. There's something to that.
Mm-hmm.
If Adam McKay didn't want to do it, to give it to the Coen brothers. All right, so
have the Coen brothers done anything like that? Have they done?
Well,
I guess they have.
Fargo is a lie, but Fargo
Yeah.
opens. It says it's a true story when it's not. Like they literally open with, based on a true story or whatever.
I thought it said based on a true story that our grandmother told us.
I just know that it's
Yeah.
it's suggested that it's real, but it's not.
Mm.
And they just like, I'm trying to think where that was. It was either in the commentary track or like one of the actors or what have you. But it's just the true story. It's just they made it all up. But
Sure.
by saying something's a true story, suddenly people kind of like perk up on it.
Sure.
Okay.
Right, like Blair Witch. A lot
right.
of
Oh my God.
Blair Witch's
We're
promo
talking
was that it was real.
Pre-internet era, people
Yeah.
fell for that shit hard.
Yeah.
They found the tapes of these people who died in the woods. Want to watch it?
Yes.
I don't think this is
Yes, I do. I do want to watch that.
But I'd watch the Bone Wars. I challenged you on it, but I'd watch the Bone Wars. I have.
I feel. You tricked me.
How did I trick you?
You didn't.
Okay.
I got blinders on. That's I got tunnel vision. As
Okay,
we were
okay.
talking, I got worse and worse tunnel vision.
Okay.
That's what happened.
Well, open your tunnel up. What would you do, or what would
No,
you
I
do
would
differently?
I would do all of those things.
Yeah.
Basically, like, I wanted to get over here, and I was like, I don't know how to get over there. And you're like, well, what about over here? And I'm like, no, not that. And you're like, what about this, though? And I was like, yeah, that's what I wanted to say that.
I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry.
Well, I have.
Be sorry for being sorry. I don't know what happened.
Well, do you want to take a break here, and I can throw one at you?
Oh my God, are we already at the break point?
Yeah.
Oh, I felt like that went so fast.
Well, do you have another thing you want to pitch?
No.
Oh, okay. Then we should take a break right now. Okay, we're going to take a quick break right here, and then we'll be right back. Your beard is all in the tizzy.
It is.
Well, I have two I could throw at you. One of them I don't really have any. I just have a true anecdotal thing, and we could do whatever we want with it.
Okay.
Okay, and it's a western.
Oh, okay.
So I figured I picked this one for you because I always thought I can't believe there's not a movie about this.
You thought I wasn't going to come up with anything.
I did. I knew you'd come up with something, and you picked something that's
I
yeah.
3/4 came up
Yeah.
with something.
No. Okay, check this out. So this is the town that faked a crime. Okay, so this is
Ooh.
Palisade, Nevada.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, and I want to be clear. It's the town that faked crime, not a crime. All like
Lots of crime.
Lots of crime. Okay, so it's Palisades, Nevada, 1870. You've never heard of Palisades, Nevada, but check out what these people did. Okay, so if you were traveling in the 1870s, you'd pass through on train from one side of the country to the other. You'd go through sleepy town after sleepy town, and either due to boredom or a need for like tourism,
Sure.
the residents would create things to stop and see along the way. Like, oh, the train, you pull into a train station, and that would be the opportunity for a town to like, hey, we got the best pancakes.
Come spend your money. Yeah.
Come spend your money here. They tried to create tourist traps. Palisade, Nevada thought of a better idea for commuters. So, as the train would approach Palisades, all the town folks would get into position, and as the train approached, they would fake gunfights, bank robberies, and battles with the local Native American tribes. So that as the train rolled past Palisades, Nevada, it was just a nightmare town. Explosions, like horses going by, arrows, and people dying in the streets, just a bloodbath. And Palisades gained a reputation as the most dangerous city in the West.
That's awesome.
And in reality, that town was so safe because everybody joined together to do this as a town.
Yeah.
They didn't even have a sheriff. It was such a safe town because everyone was literally on the same page of what this town was about. So Palisades, Nevada is the most dangerous city in the West. The town that faked crime. So just like, all right, folks, hop on the train. Oh, what route are we taking? Oh, unfortunately, this goes past Palisades, Nevada. Oh, clutch your pearls, dear. Look out, here we come. Duck, everyone. And no, because they didn't have a train station, no one was the wiser.
Oh, so literally it wasn't even for tourism. It was just, let's just do this because it's fun.
The train would go by and it'd be like, go, bang, bang, bang. So they wrote different scenarios. They were constantly trying to like one up themselves.
Yeah.
And this was a theatrical town of people who just were like,
that's amazing.
Being out in the desert is boring. Let's do something. Let's mess with the tourists.
Let's mess with them, with the people driving by. That's amazing.
Yeah, and I there's a couple ways you could go about doing that. I have a suggestion for how I think might be the most interesting, and it's anachronistic. A Christopher Guest style documentary in 1870. So I don't know. It's very anachronistic to think that you'd have people like talking to camera and it's documentary style, but it's in 1870 when none of that stuff would exist. You see what I'm like? You see?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. That could be fine.
To just have, okay, here comes a train. Yeah, so when the train comes by, I'm known for my deaths. I've been developing these blood packets, and so when people come by, I've been getting really good, but I've had a few mishaps, and like just flash to one, and like the blood is just like spraying like a hose from this person's chest, and they're like, ah!
Okay.
I don't know if a Christopher Guest style mockumentary is the best way to approach something like this, but it's so silly, it's so wild. Like,
I guess. Where does this go?
Well, if it were done in that fashion of like the mockumentary style, Christopher Guest does a good job in crafting his pieces with. It's the lowest of stakes in the grand scheme of things, but the highest of stakes for the people involved.
Sure.
So like it's a dog show. It's the PBS presentation of a folk night. It is the putting on of a play, Waiting for Guffman, right?
Yeah.
It's always like the biggest thing in these people's worlds, but it's nothing to everyone around them. And so something like the trains coming through or whatnot could be they've built a different route because we're so violent of a city. They're going to have a new train route around us. So we're going to have to put on one final show as this is our last performance of Palisades, Nevada. And so it's just if it was mockumentary style, it'd be documenting everything that people have done up to this point and getting prepared for their last show and saying goodbye to it. So it's like, I'm known for my deaths. So I'm going to have my greatest death of all time. I'm known for the hero. I'm going to be the most heroic I've ever been.
Okay.
And now, if we wanted to remove it from the mockumentary style and still use that premise, then to add a hitch into this would be, we're actually going to rob the train this time.
Okay.
That'd be a different way to go about it, but it would be like, all this time we've been putting on these threats and whatnot. How about we actually rob the train this time?
So I have a question.
Yes.
Just about the genre we're playing and the things we're doing. Doesn't that deviate too far? Like it's no longer biopic. It's no longer really about this town. It's a fictionalization.
Right. I did preface by this as a scenario that I thought was interesting
Okay.
that no one's ever talked about.
Sure.
I have an actual biopic that I'd love to pitch to you as well, but I'll poke at this
Okay.
a little bit longer. It's funny because we both pick sort of like silly true stories, or true, like yours is
Yeah.
more encompassing of an actually very influential piece of American history,
Yeah.
world history, and
Yeah.
scientific
I
history.
actually have a card game about it called The Bone Wars.
Oh wow! So it's a game movie.
No. Yeah.
Wow,
No.
the most
No.
successful movie based on a game.
The strongest card in the game is a gun.
So yes, you are right. This does deviate pretty damn far from true story events, and it's just this was a town that did this. And I'm sure if I did some research and looked into it, it's just one of those anecdotal things that I had. I think about from time to time, and like, what a funny thing. Like oftentimes I'll think about what do we do when we're bored? We have access to literally everything we could have ever dreamed of as children, and yet we still get bored. How
Sure.
much more bored did people get before TV, before radio,
Yeah.
where all they had was occasional book and occasional play?
Yeah. They would get so bored that they would make their own alcohol in the woods that would make them go blind by drinking it, but they would do it anyway. That's how bored they were. Like where I keep going, not doing it, not necessarily doing it that mockumentary style. Like the story, it ends kind of flat. Unfortunately, basically doing this story about this town, about these people who are bored, like there isn't a better word for it. Like life is slow is an understatement in Palisades, Nevada, and the train goes by, and one day someone does something, and they get a reaction, and like suddenly the whole town like starts getting in on it, and the movie's about how everyone. It's energizing this town. No new money's coming in, nothing like that. But just suddenly a community is coming together.
Yeah.
And they like it's this almost like happy thing about them
Being the most
shooting at each other,
violent,
Yeah, yeah.
awful. Yeah,
and,
you're right.
And it's this fun story, and then the way it all ends is like I don't know when it happened. I would want to do
1870.
the nerd in me would need to research it. I'd want to do something like someone actually like the advent of the car. Someone gets a car, or maybe takes a stagecoach and comes to town to find out for sure, like what's going on, and it bursts the bubble. Right, the
Yeah.
illusion is broken.
Wyatt Earp rolls it in town, or some U.S. Marshal shows up. Yeah.
I wasn't even thinking anything that serious. Like literally fans, right? Fans of this come to town to find out. Not necessarily like a sheriff, like, oh, what's going on? Like, although that's not a bad idea. That's probably the better way to go. I was more thinking someone, and it ends up almost being an allegory for the notion of an audiences who get too close to a thing that they insist they want more. They want more than a production, than a crew, than writers can provide, and they kind of shatter the illusion.
Yeah.
By getting in. Like you weren't supposed to get off the train. You weren't supposed to do this,
We aren't prepared for this.
and you've ruined it.
Yeah.
And like you've burst this bubble.
If that fan rolling into town is a criminal, like,
I think your notions of it being a lawman or even a criminal, actually, I think there's actual more juice. There's more story there. Mine's sort of this bittersweet melancholy ending of just like
this isn't real.
the dream ended. That was fun. Oh well, back to being in the Palisades.
being the Palisades. Yeah, for the dramatization of it, having it be a significant figure coming to town, whether it's a cop or a criminal, that matters, because it's like, okay, how do we maintain the illusion, or how do we explain our way out of it? It just adds that drama, the tension, because it could be. We just saw Asteroid City fairly recently. It could be that level of absurdity where it's I'm thinking like Wes
Sure.
Anderson's Western was Asteroid City, and it had like his pastiche all over it, and it was a small town known for one little thing. But I don't think I think it should. I think having this be an uplifting story in the long run, because what a fun thing! Like what a fun bit of Americana that they were the safest town. They didn't even have a sheriff because they were all friends. That they all got together. Like I don't know what the population of Palisade was, but it was enough to fool a train full of people every time it went by.
Yeah.
And that's such a sweet, fun thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, having someone come in who feels entitled to demand something of the thing they love, there is commentary on fandom in that regard.
Yeah.
So our comedy is saying more than just "isn't that funny?"
Yeah.
And I think that's cool. That's a well observed on your part. At least
yeah, because right as you were describing it, that's where I went is this could be allegory for entertainers, whether it's people like us making movies or whether it's a local theater production or performance art, or someone just randomly doing a shadow puppet one evening out under a streetlight.
I think. Yeah, if to structure a story,
it's an elaborate version of the dad joke gag when someone walks behind a counter or something and goes down the invisible stairs.
Whoa! I didn't know there were stairs there.
That's what that is. And I guess like there's something about I like sort of that minor key note of not someone important coming in, let me investigate these stairs, just someone saying, I gotta see the stairs, and they look behind and they're not there, and they spoil that illusion.
They get mad about it.
And or just disappointed, but the rest of the time it's like, I mean, yeah, okay, you burst the bubble, it was fun while it lasted.
See, that's so sad. That's such a But if it starts with the town is so bored and two of them get in a fist fight as the train goes by and people in the window take notice and they realize fighting in the streets got attention, that they're like the next time a train went by, like, punch, ow, why did you do that? It's like, look, they're looking again. And then it just builds from there and the town starts wanting to get in on the joke and it gets bigger, or the performance of it and bigger. And then your new entity enters the town to break the illusion, or be a part of the illusion, or what have you. There's drama within that. That's like the halfway point of the movie where suddenly it's like, oh no, this.
Yeah.
But I and it's just a matter of taste. And hearing a scenario like this, that I would prefer it to be like just walk away smiling.
Yeah.
As opposed to and then we stop doing it. Like that seems
sad.
And then they're sad.
I do have this streak in me that does that with things. It's not that I want it to be sad suddenly. It's that what I want it to be left with is, instead of there being this, and then it's a misadventure, it instead becomes this, and we made a memory.
Yeah.
We and not and everything came to this lightning point of Wyatt Earp coming to town. It was someone came in and like a reporter came in and spoiled the fun, but we had a great time.
Yeah.
For while we were doing it.
It was fun while it lasted.
Yeah.
We will always have the memories, and then Vitamin C plays. As we go on, we remember all the good times.
Yes, actually, my style can be summed up by Vitamin C.
Well, honestly, structurally speaking, starting with the train going by and witnessing the violence, like starting at peak perception. Oh my God! And the main character is the one who gets past all that and is so fascinated they want to go back, and then the train goes by a second time and sees the violence again. That is the one who's like, I need to know more about this town.
Oh, there you go. That's a way to tell it.
Like as far as like your first act, your first 15, 20 minutes or so of like getting to the town to unlock its secrets, and then discovering, this is all a show. And then observing, participating, or fighting against it, what have you.
That's a good direction, perspective to take on it.
Yeah, and then if it's a matter of contriving of we'll never do it anymore, or we have to stop.
I'd want to look up
historically what happened.
Yeah.
I would as well, and I'm sure
because maybe that is what happened. Is an actual lawman came to town and said, "What's
Hey,
going on here?
cut this shit
Knock all
out."
this off." I'm not going to let you blow up that building just because the train's going by.
We got all this TNT. We're going to use it. I'm the pyro guy.
But it's for the story.
It's for the story. If the train's never coming by here again, we're blowing that bank up. Oh yeah, I mean, just all the people like taking ownership of what they do best. There's a lot of fun. And
it's definitely that's I agree. I'm on board. I'm giving a big thumbs up to that.
Well, I'd like to pitch one more at you.
Do it.
Okay. So I'm going to read this one to you because I think the drama of what this is and how we can discuss this comes from this short essay of this. And
okay.
You may have heard this before, but just indulge me, if you will. Okay. On June 18th, 1947, so we're not in the Wild West anymore, a Pan Am flight from Calcutta to New York, an engine stopped working, which caused another engine to overheat, which caused a fire on the plane, which caused a panic. While the pilot attempted to land the plane, the 25-year-old co-pilot, who was a crash analyst for the Army in a previous life before he became a commercial pilot, unbuckled himself. He went to the main cabin to help the passengers. He sat next to a young woman who was alone, and he told her that everything was going to be okay. So that the movie's opening like this.
Yep.
Okay. He told her this as he watched the engine continue to burn. He told her this as he watched them fall off the wing. And he told her everything was going to be okay as the fuel lines became exposed, the fire overtook the aircraft, and the plane pitched downward. He kept telling her it was going to be okay. He told her knowing that every single person on that plane was about to die. The plane hit the ground, crashing in the middle of the Sahara, the Syrian desert. 14 people died on impact. 2 crew members survived, including the co-pilot. And with a pair of broken ribs, he went back into the plane, pulled the survivors from the wreckage, and eventually the wind turned and the fire took the entire aircraft. And they waited. Morning arrived, but a rescue didn't come, and the co-pilot took charge and formed 2 search parties. The first party went one direction, and the second party, along with the co-pilot, went the other direction, wandering the desert. So, again, we got some good... the movie's continuing with this. They eventually found a village. The village had a radio. A call was made, and the 22 survivors were rescued. And the co-pilot, the crash changed him. After that, he didn't want to be a co-pilot anymore. He wanted to do something different with his life. He resigned from Pan Am to pursue a career in writing, and ultimately writing television. The co-pilot's name, weirdly enough from what you said at the beginning, not knowing I was going to do this, was Gene Roddenberry.
Well, you found it. You found the story.
And he created Star Trek. So, like, this is not intended to be an ode to Gene Roddenberry, although he certainly deserves one. Prior to working in television, he was a decorated World War II pilot. He survived another plane crash before this, and he was a cop in Los Angeles. And he survived 3 plane crashes in his life. So the story is intended to remind you that our journey is short. Roddenberry saw life, its ephemeral nature, lit up against the backdrop of the stars, and saw that we are all passengers pitching downward into the night. And he saw that we're all helpless. So it's all going to be okay. Get help. Someone will help, or help someone. Like, it's there. That's from. So that essay comes from the Oatmeal. If you're interested in seeing the comic that goes along with it, I read that years ago. I can't remember when this was published, and I've always had it in my head like, holy shit! I had no idea. Gene Roddenberry created Star Trek. What's the story to be told there, Jim? That's the story right there.
Yeah, you're right.
How fantastic! I mean, even just opening the movie, honestly, with a plane crash like that.
Really, I think with the story you just told, what I would want to do is I would want to do Roddenberry's story. Probably call it something like To Boldly Go.
Yeah.
Do his whole story. The movie ends with him making Star Trek.
Yeah.
Like we don't even get into all of that.
It ends much like
we get whole acts on him in the military, him being a cop, all this stuff, and it ends with his success of.
And then he's
Star
like,
Trek.
I'm going to make one of the most important TV shows of all time.
Yeah.
Here I go.
Yeah.
And sir, if someone wants to be snide or actually out there and talk about the philandering nature of Gene Roddenberry himself, I don't care. I don't want to hear any of that stuff. Because when it comes down to it, it's what a life like that represents and what he injected into pop culture that I find significant and what I find important. It's like Oppenheimer being focused through a lens of the story Chris Nolan wanted to tell about this man. Sure, outside that lens, there's more story to be told. If you think that stuff's important, you go tell that story. Mm-hmm. So an idea that is incredible. That he survived plane crashes, but that story in itself right there, that he took command, he took control, he kept a cool head under extraordinary circumstances, and it's all going to be okay. And I freaking love that. And I just want to go back in here one quick second to that last statement, because I don't think I did it justice. I see you looking up something over there.
Well, these two that you've done have reminded me of other things, and I know, like when we were mildly discussing doing this, I was like, well, yeah, I don't just want to like pitch, like say, oh, this is a cool thing. I would love someone else to make a movie about.
Right.
I wanted to be able to speak to it.
Yeah.
But like there's things I'm thinking of that would make amazing movies, and I'm trying to find. Because you just read a thing.
You're trying to find one to read. Well, I just want to say one more time to truly give the credit to that last bit of the essay. He saw that we're all helpless, so get up and help someone. And I think that's so beautiful that what he gave in this story, this, even if you want to look at it strictly as the drama of it, mm-hmm. what he gave was himself. He could have panicked with everyone else. He could have seen the doom that was coming, but he chose to say, I don't care. We're all going to be okay, and I'm going to help. I'm going to help as much as I can. And I think of there's two incredible films you can watch about Mr. Rogers, the documentary and the Tom Hanks movie, and both of them have the sentiment. Mr. Rogers had this wonderful sentiment that in times of danger, look for the people helping, look for the people running towards the trouble and helping. And in the world we live in the crises after crises that we have faced for the entire millennial generation specifically, in an era of social media and how infamy is crafted by pop culture, we've looked to the people who help, look to the people who. So I think there's something truly uplifting about telling a biopic in that the whole movie doesn't have to be about this plane crash, because you're right, mm-hmm. that's not enough for a full film. But seeing the story of a guy who was a cop, a guy who was in World War II, survived 3 plane crashes, helped people, and then...
Well, yeah, right, like a true biopic.
Yeah.
Right? The way we followed the Ray Charles.
Or Elvis Presley.
Or
Frank Abagnale Jr.
yeah. But, right, like a true biopic about Gene Roddenberry that has all of that in it would be amazing.
The Aviator. The Aviator is the first biopic I remember, like, truly experiencing and feeling very strongly about the experience of seeing one whole life presented. That was when I really turned around on really loving Leo, and then obviously mm-hmm. Catch Me If You Can not long after.
Sure.
And that has an epic plane crash in it. Holy cow. Flight has an awesome plane crash in it, also based on a true story.
That's true.
So that's another pitch out there for a movie that should be, and that's incredible.
Oh my gosh! Yeah. I just read about a breakdown about, maybe I heard it, where the image of the vampire comes from, mm-hmm. right? Like where did Dracula was,
who is Vlad the Impaler?
Yeah, and all that. But the thing is, where did vampires come before? Like, because vampires existed before that, and this one thing that I was reaching, and now I can't find the name. So this is going to be a real fun flat flat balloon here. The guy who wrote The Vampire, I tried doing a quick search, and Google just brings up The Vampire Diaries or the movie from 1957, and neither of those
It's a book,
are where
right?
it comes from. Yeah, it's by a guy who was actually there that same night that Mary Shelley told Frankenstein and Lord Byron did all that stuff. The thing is, he told a story that Lord Byron basically liked him as a butler or like an assistant type person, so that's why he brought him.
John William Polidori wrote
Yeah.
The Vampire with a Y as a short work of prose fiction in 1819. It was taken from a story Lord Byron told as part of a contest among Mary Shelley, Lord Byron, Percy Shelley.
So he told a story that night, and Byron laughed at him, and so he left humiliated, and he wrote The Vampire, and The Vampire is based on Byron.
Oh,
So like all of those things, a very rich, noble aristocrat kind of thing, very haughty, all of that, it's Byron.
he
That's
just
all Lord
like
Byron.
wrote a hate. It's like, I will destroy
Yeah.
you in prose.
Yes, basically.
How Chaucer of him.
And then 100 years later, or not quite, Bram Stoker goes and basically takes that, applies it to
Count Dracula.
Count Dracula, Vlad the Impaler. It didn't hurt that I think Byron actually had a haircut that was similar to Vlad the Impaler's.
Well, that's an interesting bit of history.
Yeah, but I think doing a biopic, I don't necessarily know how to do it. I wouldn't want to do like cutaways to like to like small vignettes, but like doing that night of all of those writers together telling stories in that building.
So almost an anthology biopic.
No, what I'm saying is I wouldn't want to do that.
Oh, okay,
right?
okay.
I wouldn't want to cut away to Mary Shelley's Frankenstein
And then we see
in 10 minutes. I don't and then
okay.
like I would rather just stay in that mansion. Like if you want to do that story, I want to almost like The Booth at the End. If you don't know The Booth at the End, it should be on Hulu. It's an amazing series.
It's the third day in
Go
a row.
watch it.
Third day in a row that's come up.
Oh yeah?
That's so funny.
But the reason I bring it up is because The Booth at the End, it's people sitting in a booth at a diner telling stories, but it doesn't cut away to like it technically is a violation of movies. The whole point is show don't tell, and it's about these people telling these stories, recalling them.
An actor's
but they're
dream.
amazing. They're amazing, and that's what I would want to do with One Night at the Manse.
One night at the
Something like that, and it would be the Shelleys, Byron, and whoever else was there, telling their stories by firelight.
Yeah, William Polidori, Mary and Percy Shelley, and Lord Byron, telling their four tales.
Yeah,
Yeah, you have the right performer, and you have one hell of a script, and Booth at the End is a good example of like the absolute limitations of cinematography and how do you make something so damn compelling, and a good score.
yeah,
Limiting it to those, it can be done right. It can be done really wrong, but let's imagine it can be done right. And yeah, I would bet if we're thinking like a studio, if we're throwing out a biopic of like, I'm going to tell the story of these four authors, one of them crafting the most important work of fiction, one of the most important works of fiction of the modern era, then I feel like the studio would go like, well, then we need to see those things. We need to see Frankenstein and the Vampire and the two others that we don't know off the top of our head. You're fighting against it. You're pushing against it and saying like, no, I don't want her to read it, and then we see images of it or whatnot.
yeah.
I wonder.
I mean, because the thing is, you could in doing that, like her telling the story, if just watching her tell it and watching the others' reactions isn't enough, I'm open to fictionalizing more stuff. Like these four people, they're not going to be alone in this mansion. They will have staff.
Well,
and we could get a little bit of like an upstairs downstairs kind of thing of these butlers and maids
observers
also hearing these stories. And
well, I was going to evoke Community. Community did 2 episodes with Dungeons and Dragons that was strictly sound design and score, where it was performance. They were acting
Sure.
it. They were telling their stories. We never saw it, but we heard it. And
Sure.
so imagining, again, such a juggling act in trying to pull something like this off. It can be done, but of telling the story of the vampire, of telling Frankenstein, and hearing the atmosphere of
Sure.
of that in the periphery, like a sound designer's dream.
Sure.
To say, like,
I'd even allow. I wouldn't want to do like a puppet show, but I'd even allow like
shadow work,
purposeful use of shadows. Yeah.
Yeah. The interesting, structurally speaking, what's interesting about that, if it's just the one night, we come in,
It may
they
not
share
have been
their
one night. It may have been a whole weekend. I don't remember.
whatever the case. It's
Yeah.
such a limited time, and it's, hey, we're all here. Here's our stories. Stories have been told. Wasn't that good? Let's have dinner. Like, structurally speaking, that is unconventional, but it's a real challenge that I think several people would want to jump on board for.
Sure.
Because it mostly it would be like trying to film a play, and some people aren't going to tolerate that. But then there are movies that are bottle movies that are two people talking. I know Sam Jackson and Tommy Lee Jones have one. It's just two guys in an apartment. Yeah, it's a recreation of a play. We watched Last Supper recently, which doesn't really go anywhere. The B story shows us some police station stuff, but for the most part, the whole movie takes place in a house, and it's one dinner after another, and the conversations during and between those dinners. Damn good movie. Weirdly poignant to this day. Find it if you can. My God, Jim showed it to me. I was stunned. It was like a 90s movie, and like everything they're saying still applied
Yep.
to 2023, and that was both cool and sad.
Yes.
But yeah, that's an interesting idea. You got another one?
I think so.
Okay.
The way you read the Roddenberry thing reminded me of this thing, and I think it would make an amazing story as well. I don't know if this is too long, though. It's quite a few paragraphs.
Ugh. Well, you better make it entertaining, because there's only so many people willing to sit through us talking.
Okay. Okay. So here we go. More Comanche bands were arriving every day, and every warrior among them knew the name of their band, the Quahati, the Antelope Eaters. Every Comanche had heard the Quahati's new warband chief. He was young, yet not even the oldest warrior would speak before him. His skin was white, but he had proved his loyalty to the Quahati in raid after raid. Now every one of them looked to the young man for guidance, for wisdom, for strength. He was the greatest buffalo hunter, the greatest horseman, the strongest warrior, and his closest war brothers knew he was also much more. His name was Pohebits Quasho, Iron Jacket, and the tales his war brothers told of him left their listeners aghast.
So I was going to stop you there. So, like, what was it?
Iron Jacket.
Iron Jacket, great title. And what you've presented thus far strikes me as like what was it, Comanche?
Yeah,
that
Comanche.
it's their Davy Crockett. It's their Paul Bunyan. Like, it's the legendary folk hero.
It was said that bullets bounced off his skin.
Oh, I see. That's awesome.
It was said that he could blow bullets aside with his breath.
Oh my! I'm seeing this. Like, keep going. That's good.
As the warriors gathered, Iron Jacket spoke, and the restlessness among them stilled immediately. He spoke with few words, but they were words that brought a great cheer to the listeners. The Comanche would ride this full moon, and Iron Jacket, if they wished, would lead them all. The representatives of the other bands spoke as one and joined their voices to Iron Jacket's war brothers as they cheered him. In 2 nights' time, the moon would be full, and the Comanche would ride as one tribe. The battle was over quickly. Iron Jacket rode at the head of the line of 1,000 whooping warriors. The Mexican soldiers fired a single volley and fled. He led raids against their towns and villages. For an entire summer he looted and raided, taking hundreds of slaves and burning thousands of homes. The Mexicans sent their best general against him, but the man returned, pale and ill, with only a handful of his men remaining. He said that Iron Jacket must be a supernatural being, for he had seen the Comanche chief shot dead center without any harm coming to him. The Mexicans and Texans became terrified of Iron Jacket.
I'm starting to think Iron Jacket invented the bulletproof vest. Continue.
And the Comanche became a name to be feared. Iron Jacket knelt in the dirt as tears poured down his face. His wife and daughter lay under the Wichita Mountains, and their belongings lay burning before him, the flames dancing on his tear-soaked face. The smallpox had taken them both and devastated the Quijada. Barely half of them remained. The rest of the Comanche faced similar woe. Iron Jacket was devastated. He could not eat. He could not speak. His wife's brother knelt beside him and slashed at his own arms in mourning, as was custom, showing the depths of his grief. But Iron Jacket could not. His knife slid off his skin harmlessly like it always had.
Oh my God, this dude's Superman. Did he come from Krypton? Wow. This is a true story?
And his heart broke that he could not mourn his beloved wife properly. For many years, Iron Jacket mourned, and despite their once invulnerability in battle, the Comanche way of life was steadily disrupted. So I'm going to interrupt for a second. Actually, that's the way I found this story, is someone said, what if Kal-El landed in the 1700s in the southwestern United States?
That's because this is what it sounds like. It sounds like a Superman story. This is excellent.
I realized as I'm reading this, like I framed it in. I didn't frame it the way I learned. I learned it as, oh, this is a Superman. This is a fictionalized Superman story. Decimated. Back to the story. Decimated by the smallpox and by the cholera that followed it, their great war band no longer rode out every full moon. Their villages had became abandoned. Their enemies no longer shook with fear at their name. The buffalo herds were dying as white hunters took them, slaughtering them in greater and greater numbers. The Comanche had no farms. The buffalo were their life. And the white hunters, despite how many the Comanche killed, seemed never-ending. Iron Jacket remarried, and his second wife gave birth to a son. He became known as Lone Wanderer, due to the boy's habit of disappearing for days on end. Only Iron Jacket knew where the boy went, and only he could follow him, though he never did, appreciating the child's need for solitude. The burden of leadership weighed heavily on Iron Jacket these days, and he wished he too had a place of solitude to retreat to, but every day brought counsels, debates, problems to fix. He could barely afford the time to eat, let alone take time out for himself. A war chief had to be visible at all times, and Iron Jacket was the war chief of war chiefs, the most famous Comanche alive. The young warriors clamored for Iron Jacket to gather the war bands again, and he had done before the Great Dying. He was reluctant, but he was superstitious and feared that the death of his first wife was somehow tied to the lives he had taken. He did not know where his abilities came from. He did not know why he could not be touched by bullets or blades.
He's cursed.
Why he seemed to have limitless strength, why the smallpox had not touched him, or why he could travel so far and so fast without exhaustion. His old war brothers had respected him for his abilities. Now he was revered, but he saw the faces of the dead whenever he closed his eyes, not just Comanche, but the white men also, women and children falling apart in his hands like water. He could not sleep through the night any more. He did not want to go to war again, but his people needed him, and so he must. The Comanche rode again, and these raids tore the Texan Rangers and U.S. Army apart. They fell back in disarray, terrified of Iron Jacket, the legend that rode at the head of the hundreds of screaming warriors. But though their bullets bounced off Iron Jacket, they did not bounce off his war brothers, and every brother who lay beneath the mountains was one less brother to ride with him. The bands were weak, dying of diseases that Iron Jacket could not see or stop, having to ride further and further apart, scattering themselves to find the buffalo. Unable to sleep for the faces of the dead that broke apart and spilled through his hands each night, Iron Jacket ran beneath the moon, traveling vast distances in seconds, searching for the hunters who killed the buffalo. He killed them wherever he found them, but the next month as he searched, he found a village of Comanche instead. They lay slaughtered, 50 women, children, old people, all mutilated in the same way as he had mutilated the hunters. Iron Jacket could not look at them. He staggered away, aghast at the consequences of his actions. He should have known that brutality bred only brutality and war led only to war. The Comanche village was dead, and the soldiers walked among the corpses, checking that none survived. Captain Rip Ford stood beside his horse and watched them with an implacable, merciless eye.
Is this a bad guy? Because that's a great bad guy name.
He cared nothing for these people.
Son of a bitch.
Whether they lived or died was nothing to him.
McConaughey's finest work. Continue.
But he had orders to take care of the problem, and that was what he was going to do. I would have totally changed tone if I knew that this was the paragraph I was going into. These people understood nothing but killing. Well, they would see Rip Ford knew how to kill Indians, and this Iron Jacket was no different than other powerful chiefs. You never fought them directly if you could help it. You took out their heart first, their homes, their food, their lives.
God
You broke
damn
them
it.
down until they welcomed death. The Tonkawan Indian that sat in front of Rip Ford had a vicious look to him. But to Rip Ford, they all looked like that. He eyed the man suspiciously. He said his name was Pockmark and that he was well named. The pox had scarred him deeply. But he led a force of hundreds of Tonkawa warriors, and they hated the Comanche who had long raided their fellow Indians just as much as anyone else.
There's a good third act turn where we've been with Iron Jacket the whole time, and then after some, like, he fades to, and suddenly we're in this new tent. We got two new characters, like, and this treacherous native who's like, no, I hate the Comanches as much as you white assholes. Let's do it.
This Reddit entry is really well written. More than this, Pockmark said he had a way to kill Iron Jacket. Rip Ford was interested. Iron Jacket sat silently in his hut. His war brothers sat outside, fearful, worried. They had brought their great chief the news of the approaching army, that it had massacred the village a day's journey down the river. But Iron Jacket hadn't even replied. He had just gone into his hut and sat. He had barely moved since his son had left the last time and not returned. Lone Wanderer was gone, perhaps forever. They had argued before he went. Lone Wanderer had said that this was not why they had their abilities, this brutal, bloody war, this endless killing. He had refused to be a part of it anymore. Iron Jacket had not spoken a word since he left. He had no one left to comfort him. His war brothers were young, his old companions long dead in raids and illness. His second wife was also dead now from a bout of measles which had tore through their band and left them a shadow of its former self. The white men and their Tonkawan allies lined up outside Iron Jacket's village. For the last time, Iron Jacket mounted his horse, still leaping into the saddle in a single bound as he had done as a youth. But his face was weary, his eyes hooded, and his mouth heavily drawn. His last war brothers lined up beside him. Many had come from the Comanche bands nearby. The name of Iron Jacket could still raise an army. He rode out alone to the lines of soldiers. He saw their captain, a hard-faced man with cold eyes. He fixed him with a stare that threatened to burn the man alive where he sat. But he could not do it this time. He could not face more death. Iron Jacket rode up and down the lines of soldiers as they fired at him, their bullets bouncing off his skin as they had always done. He could at least do this. He could at least give his brothers courage.
This is definitely the climax of this movie.
Pockmark grinned without humor as he pulled the oilcloth from his great buffalo gun. He raised it up, already loaded. He had brought the sliver of green rock from an old medicine man for a great price. More than he could afford. But if it worked, it would be worth it. His own family were... I'm realizing something as I'm reaching this point.
Yes.
This is not a true biopic.
You son of a bitch. I've been with you the whole time. You just said, wait, Green Rock. Wait a minute. This is a Superman story.
It is. His own family were dead at the hands of this monster. Pockmark would avenge them. He would not falter. With a cry of rage, he fired. The great Iron Jacket turned in his saddle at the cry. For an instant, he looked straight at Pockmark, seeing the gun in his hands, but he did not move or dodge the shot. He sat there and shook his head as the green stone tore his iron skin open. As he slumped to the side and fell from his saddle, his brothers cried out in horror. Rip Ford did not even smile as he raised his saber at the lines of Indians before him. "Kill them all," he said. NB. This is actually a true story. Source Iron Jacket, and someone give him gold. Sorry, I messed it all up. If you want to cut this from the episode, then that's okay.
It's something that that you've said that I think it's worth mentioning. How little editing
we
ever
don't
done on
cut
this show.
very much at all.
I'm curious. The Legend of Iron Jacket. So Iron Jacket was a Comanche chieftain in the late 1780s. Probably stayed away from the dangerous Palisades, Nevada, since it was around the same era. He was a Native American war chief and chieftain for Comanche Indians. Iron Jacket was a Comanche chieftain, medicine man, that the Comanche believed had the power to blow bullets aside with his breath. And his name probably resulted in his habit of wearing a Spanish coat of chainmail into battle, which protected him from most light weapon fire. So this is based on a real guy.
It's a real guy.
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot. Like, I got it backwards. I thought I didn't remember how many details were actually Supermanisms.
Yeah.
Because I read it it literally was presented as a what if what if Superman had done this, and the twist at the end is, by the way, this was a real dude.
Yeah.
I forgot that it had been embellished for fiction.
I mean, embellished for fiction is how you make movies. No one wants to see an actual biopic. They're very boring. It's just documentaries are not what people are paying to see when they watch Daniel Day-Lewis play Lincoln.
What about Love of Fire or Fire of Love or whatever that lava, the volcanologist movie was?
That's right. Not that there can't. I mean, there's some incredible true story documentaries.
Yeah.
King of Kong is always the one I go to, or Exit Through the Gift Shop. True story? Question mark about Banksy. So that would be awesome.
The other one I would love. Ideally, I would like to make biopics a la Weird.
Yeah, where it's like
Weird Al's quote biopic.
Where it's totally not like
yeah.
So no, there's something that's an excellent. Warner Brothers, get on that, like tricking people or deceiving people into watching a Superman movie. Just the idea of like his legend and seeing those things in the telling of him, bullets bouncing off of him, and that he's finally taken down by a kryptonite bullet is. That might be stretching it. Maybe.
So I forgot those details. It actually is that story. I love that story. It was not appropriate to this episode.
You tricked the studio into producing a film that is not true.
Yeah,
but it's based on a real guy.
Yeah,
who was believed to have powers. I said it. I'm like, I'm starting to think he wore a bulletproof vest, and the people didn't realize that was happening.
Yeah,
why he was wearing that heavy coat? No reason. Ping, 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 ping. But we have So just recapping the episode here, we have the Bone Wars.
Yep.
There's a lot of fun to be had there. The town that faked crime.
Yep.
I think there's fun there. That actually got more mileage than I thought. Boldly Go, the Gene Roddenberry story. I think that's cool. Iron Jacket.
Yeah.
Did you do anyone before Iron Jacket?
Even if you didn't do it the Superman way, Iron Jacket's totally a story that deserves to be told.
It's funny. We picked sort of three westerns. I mean,
it's a period that I very much enjoy.
I believe I'm saying this correctly, but for the verisimilitude of 5 being a better number than 4,
it would be the way I would do it, the way I would want to see it done, because and it would take a lot of people making sure that my white ass is sensitive about what's being done. I thought, and actually this might not even be good to do, doing a Trail of Tears story.
Oh, certainly.
But but showing the awfulness of it, and not like it, and it can't have a happy ending. That's one thing. Like McKay did it with Don't Look Up, sort of. A lot of movies that are trying to warn people or tell people, shake people up to wake up to a problem or a thing and be aware of how things are going or have been. They tend to put a button on the end because it's an end, and it's
you can feel good leaving the theater.
But what often happens with a button, even if it's not a feel-good button, is it feels like an end, and so you go, "Oh, so that's done now."
That's done,
But
doing Trail of
with
Tears,
something like that, I wouldn't want it to be that. Like, I want the audience to feel terrible that whole time, and to go into life feeling terrible.
This needs to be a movie that you don't want to watch again. Schindler's List.
Kind of, yeah.
And 12 Years a Slave. Holy cow. Incredible films, but also who wants to pop that on and watch it again? Yeah.
But at the same time, maybe it's inappropriate because it's just torture porn of people who didn't deserve it, and I'd be afraid that it would be exploitation.
Yeah. You're right. Being sensitive, giving it into the hands of a filmmaker who has every right to tell that story is going to do. A friend of ours, an old acquaintance of ours, always wanted to do a story about the Chinese Railroad, the abuse that Asian Americans went through in building the rail system across this country. I'd like to do one more awesome true story biopic. You've heard this. You've heard me tell this story more than once. But to go out on a fun note, I got one more. It's one of my favorite dinner conversation pieces.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you the title of the movie, so Jim, you know what's coming. The name of this movie is Zombies to the Top. Okay, so that what a compelling title, Zombies to the Top. Let me tell you a story here, folks. You ever hear the song Sounds of the Season by the Zombies? What's your name? Who's your daddy? Is he rich like me? So that was a UK band back in the 60s, and they recorded their album, they released it, and no one cared. It just bombed. The record sold so poorly, the band broke up. The Zombies were no more. That record found its way to America, to a little old radio station, and a producer found it and saw the potential of it and started putting it on the air. And the Zombies slowly started to be a success in America.
I want to interrupt. Just the way I would do it is everything that you did about the band recording this album and it being a dud.
Yeah.
That would all be the cold open, and then the opening credits would be a montage following this
the record, yeah,
as it goes across the sea.
Yep.
All these boxes gets transferred.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how you open the movie, right?
Yeah.
So this producer guy found this record, throws it on the air, and it becomes a hit. I mean, even if you're remotely familiar with pop music and you're not under 20 years old, you've heard the song Sounds of the Season. That song climbed the charts. The band didn't exist. So this producer got an idea. I'm going to reform the Zombies and start touring with them. So this guy made a fake Zombies. He auditioned acts, got himself the full band together, and started touring the south side of America from Florida to California with the Zombies and started selling out. The album climbed the charts. The Zombies were a hit. This dude started raking in the money. He got so greedy, he thought, hey, if it worked down here, why don't I make a second Zombies and start touring the north side of America? So he made a second Zombies, and he auditioned a bunch of acts. He got the band together. The only thing he couldn't get was an organ player who could play like the organ player. So every time they got to a show, they'd say that the organ player got arrested in the last town and that they couldn't bust him out. Now here's the show. And so the Zombies started touring America. They climbed the charts #1. Well, back over to merry old London there.
The merry old sea.
Back across the merry old sea. Who catches wind of the success but the original Zombies?
Oh no!
Who are like, what? What? Hold the whatever this. What's the telly? Hold the telly over here, Jim. We're doing. We're cranking up the charts over there in America on the radio. We're not even a band anymore. Okay, so they get the lawyers involved and they shut this shit down. This fake Zombies needs to be shut down. And now there's success again. They reform the band and they start recording albums again, and thus they become a success again. And the Zombies went on to have a very good career. But the story doesn't end there, no, because it wasn't about those zombies. It was about the two fake zombies who loved what they did. In fact, the lead singer-guitarist of one zombie found the lead singer-guitarist of the other and was like, dude, what a ride. Like, we were rock stars for a short time. We got to pretend we were British. We were touring across the country. We should keep doing this. And that other guitarist, lead singer, was like, yeah, man, let's form a band. So then lead singer guitarist of this Zombies and this lead singer and guitarist of this Zombies formed a band and started touring with their drummer under a moniker called ZZ Top. And now you know what the Z's stand for in ZZ Top. And that story is so freaking cool. And I love telling that story to, like, especially like older dudes like my dad and whatnot, because they know the band, and they love ZZ Top, and they don't know that story.
Yeah.
Zombies to the top, Jim.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's a great story.
And like, I think
it would make a good movie too.
Particularly when you get to that last bit and they're like,
yeah.
Yep. Wait, what? All right, so there's our pitches for some biopics, including one that is very embellished.
Yeah. Doing the actual biopic. Now that I read the wrong story, just a movie about Iron Jacket, as he was, not turned into a white alien superhero. It would still be an amazing story.
Yeah. But it's not up to us to decide. It is up to LB and Artistry Pictures to decide if we've pitched a biopic that they want to produce. So you got to
hopefully one of those options.
Hopefully one, yes. Yeah. So you let us know.
Oh, and the Mary Shelley one.
Oh, I knew there was one more in there. Yeah. Vampire. I knew there was one more.
One Night in the Manse.
One Night in the One Night in the Manse. I knew there was one more and I couldn't remember it. So there's 6 for you to choose from, LB. But how did we do? I can't really say like what did we leave out.
I think the
Call to action.
the town that was too violent is probably the
town that faked crime.
Yeah, is probably the best one.
I think so. I think Bone Wars has a lot of potential. One in the Manse.
Bone Wars has a lot of potential, but I dropped the ball on every one of my pitches in one way or another. I didn't have enough actually there, or it was clearly the wrong genre, or
well, let's wrap up here. We'll throw a call to action to the listeners, and we can continue to chat into our bonus section here about each one of these. But yeah, I suppose it's not like what did we leave out because we weren't developing properties that anyone was familiar with. So more, I guess is there anything to build off of? Did we throw any of these 6 out there that you're like, oh my God, yes, oh my God, no, oh you were onto something there? We'd love to hear from you. So yeah, if you want to get in touch with us, you can get over at studiodemands.com, which has gone through an overhaul. You can now access all the episodes as well as the TikToks are on there as well. So
one-stop shop.
One-stop shop. You can also get us on Facebook and Instagram. We are, at least for the time being, Twitter is not an option. I will still check if you'd like to
right, because it's not even called that anymore.
Yeah, I know. I'm very perturbed about this. If you still want to message us through there, I will still be checking the account. But for now, I can't sanction this buffoonery. It's basically what it comes down to. But you can get us at studiodemands.com. If you're not already, you can subscribe to us on all the podcatchers. In fact, we've recently expanded to literally everywhere you can hear podcasts. So feel free to subscribe to us if you're not already, and keep giving us those reviews in app because that really does help us with the algorithm. You can also find us on YouTube and, as I said, TikTok, where we're posting video content this year. Well, just in general, including material not here on the show. You can find me. Oh shit. Where can you find me? You can find me on Instagram at TC's Big Head. And Jim, they can find you on Instagram.
They can.
Yeah.
Kind of. I still don't check it regularly.
Give Jim a reason.
I can't even remember.
Give Jim Brazell.
I'm on there somewhere.
And big news, if you have not heard yet, we have a Patreon. And actually, thank you. We had a little bump in Patreons in the past month.
Jim Brazelic.
Jim Brazelic at Twitter.
At
Jim Brazelic.
Is it an at on Twitter? Or on, not Twitter,
yes.
on Instagram?
Instagram, yeah.
I don't see that. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. I'm likely doing it wrong.
We have a Patreon. Thank you to the new patrons who have jumped on the past month. You can get episodes early. You can get all our entire back catalog of extended episodes because we do extended episodes for every episode. I said the word too many times now. It's lost all meaning. We do have movie commentary tracks available. A massive thank you to Sixfive Media for everything they do for us. Please check out the other Sixfive shows if you're interested. That's it for this episode. Jim, did anything come to your mind as we rambled at each other in these last minutes?
No.
This is the part that people tune out of anyway, so give them something to think about. If you grew a 5th leg, where would you put it? As a dog.
Where would you put it?
The back, obviously.
But that's where the poop comes out. that's where the tail is. Yeah. A 5th leg.
If you're a dog, I said as a dog.
Oh, you did. Right in the middle.
Just right through the stomach. Okay, that's it.
Oh God, what a horrifying monster that is.
We'll be back again to improve the world of cinema and take on your demands. Yeah, that's it. I'm TC.
Oh, maybe a biopic about there was a guy who had the crab deformity, where and he was a murderer.
Crab.
He was a murderer, and he got away with murder. He killed his not quite son-in-law, his daughter's boyfriend. Went to ask his permission, and he killed him. But because of his disabilities, the prison system at the time didn't have they weren't able to do it. So he was basically just got 15 years of probation. He just had to stay house arrest.
How do we lock up Crab Man?
Yeah, and then his wife put a hit out on him.
What?
And
should have led with this, Jim.
And he didn't die. and they both got more time in prison than he got even under house arrest, and they didn't even fully accomplish the murder.
Wow, the criminal justice system is so jacked in this country. Crab people getting off for murder over here, people doing hits, people who deserve it going to prison over there.
Where did I just read about?
Oh my God. All right, that's it.
I should have led with that. I'm terrible at this.